Welcome to the online version of Jazz Evensong at Brentwood Presbyterian Church. My name's Brian Fraser. I have the privilege of being the minister with this wonderful little church out here in Burnaby, British Columbia. We've been doing jazz services on a weekly basis now since 2013. There's a number of other churches in Vancouver, in the Vancouver area, that do jazz worship services. St. Andrews Wesley, where the whole movement began in Vancouver, and Brentwood are the only ones that do it weekly, but we are delighted that is possible for us. We normally have a different group every week. They will play 7 songs. We'll do a few reflections, a couple of prayers, and that'll be the service. This online version is shorter. We're going to use 3 songs, 3 reflections, a prayer, and then the benediction. These are clips that Ken Burke and Burkeville Productions, his wonderful team at Burkeville Productions over the last several years, have videoed and recorded for us. And so Ken's been good enough to make those available, and we've put them together into this shorter version of Jazz Evensong, so that we trust this time together will be as much a blessing as our gathering face to face, and we look forward to the return of that as soon as possible. This evening, we're graced by the talents of Tom Reynolds on piano, Paul Rushka on bass, and Christian Brathen on drums. Paul and Christian are local jazz musicians here in Vancouver. They've played at Brentwood on several occasions. Tom is a friend who's been working with us on a bigger project we call Jazz and Spirituality. So what we're interested in is what people who are participating in jazz worship services are experiencing, how they would describe it. And so this is kind of we began in the summer of 2018 with 4 jazz students on Canada Summer Jobs grants. They interviewed about 70 people, 70, 80 people. And so we're interested in how they talk about the experience of participating in jazz worship. So we've talked about it because of the way they talked about the transcendent in their lives. We've talked about it as jazz and spirituality, and we're still working on that. Anyway, Tom was out here for a consultation with those that were part of the project and that were interested in talking about this. And part of that consultation was a concert. And so we have probably 2 services worth of music with Tom, and then we put together Paul and Christian to play with Tom when he came out. And so we open their improvisations for this particular version of Jazz Evensong with one of the grand old hymns of the Christian tradition, Be Thou My Vision. This is Tom's arrangement of that. It's a hymn of praise for the ways in which the Creator's love embraces every dimension of our lives. Personally, communally, every dimension is embraced by God's love, in this life and in the next. God's grace generates a grateful joy because of that relationship. And so we thought, especially in this time of pandemic, when we're separated, when many of us are feeling lonely and isolated, that this would be a wonderful place to start our online Jazz Evensong. So here's Tom Reynolds, Paul Rushka, Christian Brathen with Be Thou My Vision. Beautiful Love was premiered by the Wayne King Orchestra in 1931 and has become another one of the jazz classics. I first heard it on the Bill Evans album Explorations, which I think came out in 1961. For me, it speaks deeply of the love of God that generates the rhythms of grace and gratitude that sustain our lives. Literally, breath by breath. Every breath we take is sustained by that forgiving and reconciling love of God that around which the Christian church gathers. We breathe in God's grace and we breathe out our gratitude. And this song captures it so beautifully, wonderfully interpreted by Tom, Paul, and Christian. So let's turn it back to them. What is this thing called love? Wonderful song by Cole Porter. It's a question that goes much deeper than the romantic love often associated with that song that was written in 1929. I think in a culture marred so much these days by callousness and by conflict, there's a voice of redemptive love, of reconciling and forgiving love that speaks in and through our souls deeply. And I, for one, hear that in this jazz standard. And it's beautifully played again by Tom, Paul, and Christian. So let's listen to What Is This Thing Called Love? Let's close out our evening with a prayer. Ponder with me this prayer for this evening. You have graced us this evening, dear friend, with the melodies, rhythms, and harmonies of your love. May that gift from you seep deep into our souls in this time of puzzling pandemic. Make this service one of the ways your message of forgiving and reconciling love penetrates the fearful loneliness that plagues us and our neighbors. So many of our habits and patterns have been disrupted. So much that offered safety has been disturbed. So many of the embraces that gave us comfort have been denied. But your music of vision and love, in whatever form and from whatever source, still soothes our souls. And we are deeply grateful for such mercy and grace. Amen. Thank you again for being with us in this new version of Jazz Evensong. We'll broadcast a similar service every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock and then have it up on our Brentwood Jazz Evensong Facebook page for asynchronous participation as well. And now our usual benediction at Jazz Evensong. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.